Welcome back to the Fantasy Trading Room, hosted by Faceoff Sports Network, and today we're going to be giving you the must-add players for your waiver wire week 3 in every single position. Not only the running backs, the wide receivers, but the tight ends and the quarterbacks. Not going to take too much of your time, just briefly dive into every single player that you must have. All these players are owned in under 50% of ESPN leagues, so this basically applies to almost everyone, and we are just in the aftermath of the Nick Chubb injury, which is absolutely devastating to me. Now that I think about it, I have Nick Chubb in 2 of my Dynasty Money Leagues and 2 of my Redraft Money Leagues. So I'm depressed. I'm going to be talking about Jerome Ford and why you need to get him. But with that said, let's just jump straight into Jerome Ford so I can make myself feel a little better about bidding $30 a fab on him. Now, I wouldn't spend a third of your budget on him unless you're in the same situation as me, where you have Nick Chubb injured and J.K. Dobbins injured in the first 2 weeks. If you have no other running backs, you need an RB1 that's going to hit. I mean, we saw Jerome Ford had that potential. He had 24.1 points without Nick Chubb. And keep in mind, I mean, Chubb had 10 carries, so Ford wasn't really being used until the second quarter, I believe. So I would spend a fair amount. I would go around 20 to 25. But if you really need an RB1 that's going to hit and you can't afford, if that's your only shot, but if you really can't afford to waste all your fab and want to be able to make moves down the road, I wouldn't spend that much money. But again, Jerome Ford is rostered in 9.1% of leagues. It's almost a guarantee that if you're in a shallow redraft league that you can get Jerome Ford. So with Ford, he looked great. He had a 69-yard run. He literally missed a 70-yard run by 1 freaking yard. He was so close. He kind of got tripped up at the end, and it looked like he was injured, which scared me very badly. But he was very efficient. He averaged 6.6 yards per touch on the ground. He wasn't really used too much as a pass catcher. 3 receptions, 25 yards, but he did have that 1 touchdown. So he's getting about the same treatment as Nick Chubb. You know, Nick Chubb is going to get you all that rushing work and then maybe 2 to 3 receptions. I mean, that's what he's getting now without Kareem Hunt. But yeah, Jerome Ford is my number 1 waiver wire player of the week across all positions. Definitely the number 1 running back. So let's get into Zack Moss, who is my number 2 waiver wire pickup and number 2 running back as well. This is the week of the running backs. You got to go out and get your running back replaced. Everything is happening with injuries. I don't even know what's going on. It's only week 2. I feel like we are in week 9 with the amount of injuries that's going on in the NFL. But Zack Moss came out here and dominated. He had 18 carries, and no other running back touched the ball. It was Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew. You can see in the box score were the only other 2 Indianapolis Colts with carries. And Zack Moss was very good. There wasn't a reason why he shouldn't be getting these touches. So he had 4.9 yards per carry, a touchdown. Only broke out an 11-yard run. He's not the most explosive player. But early on, we were talking about Deion Jackson. I said, Deion Jackson is a good plug-and-play, but Zack Moss had a really good stretch last season. He's listed as the RB1 on the Colts depth chart. So I thought the Evan Hall claims were ridiculous. You're never going to be able to play him. He's a rookie. Zack Moss is clearly that guy. And obviously, this comes with a repercussion until Jonathan Taylor. Once you get Jonathan Taylor, you are going to be very upset if you spend a lot of money or fab on him because he's not going to see the field almost ever again. JT is going to get that elite bell cow workload, where Jerome Ford is going to be the RB1 for the foreseeable future. That's the difference between the 2. So besides those top 2 guys, there aren't really many other great options on the waiver wire, but we do have Roshan Johnson, who I'm a Bears fan. Roshan is a player I was extremely excited about, but he's only rostered in 30.5% of ESPN leagues. He had a great week 1 with 17.5 points. Didn't have a stellar week 2, 6.2, but that game was a complete mess. I mean, the Bears just looked awful, and I'm not saying Roshan is going to have elite level upside because Fields clearly cannot run the offense. I'm out on Fields. If you want to hear me talk about Fields as a Bears fan, I'll just tell you he can't process reads, he can't make decisions, and he has no confidence. I'm out on Fields. I just sold him in Dynasty for T. Higgins and a 24 first, about mid-round pick, but that's a story for another day. He's still in an offense that loves to run the ball, and he's getting that passing down work. You see, he only had 2 catches in week 2, but he had 6 catches in week 1, and that's where I expect him to be at normally around the 4 to even 6 catches mark Khalil Herbert is not getting those pass catching work. Donta Foreman is a healthy scratch, so he's no longer in a three-man committee and only competing with Khalil Herbert for the time being. So that's huge for Roshan. Again, bad offense, but they like to run the ball, and you're getting him at a very cheap price. So if you're watching my last waiver wire video, we had Puka Nacua on there, and I pray to God you just went out there, spent all your fab like I did. Now, that didn't help me save Nick Chubb or prevent a J.K. Dobbins injury, but now I'm extremely stacked at wide receivers with a league that no one wants to trade for my good wide receivers. But besides the point, Puka dominated with 30.1 points, but what's being underlooked is Tutu Atwell has had two 15-plus point performances in the last two games. He looks very good. The difference is, I think with Tutu, he is probably going to be very affected by the return of Cooper Kupp, where Puka looks like he'll be sliding into that Robert Woods role. But Tutu, I don't really see him having much value as a wide receiver 3. Right now, this Rams offense looks a lot better than initially expected. They're top 3 in passing attempts per game, but keep in mind, Cooper Kupp's coming back. Kyron Williams got 10 targets last game, and I'm just not really sure if, even though Stafford's good, you can't really support a wide receiver 3 unless you're amazing and elite, and I don't think he's there yet. But nonetheless, Atwell clearly is a talented player. If his situation changes, say Kupp misses more time, for the time being, I would start him as a flex. Or if anything else changes, Williams isn't used as a pass catcher, Puka somehow dramatically falls off, I would go roster Atwell right now. My number 2 pickup at wide receiver is Rashid Shaheed. I hope I said that right, but the Saints' deep threat has looked explosive early on the season. Obviously, you've got Chris Olave. Michael Thomas has risen from the dead for now until he gets inevitably injured. That's another reason why you take Shaheed. But Derek Carr looks very good. It looks like the Raiders are just a dumpster fire of an organization. And the Saints have a pretty solid offense. Now, they're not great. I'd say they're pretty comparable to the Rams and these two situations. But Shaheed is showing that he has a repertoire with Carr for getting targeted down the field. He had 6 targets week 1, 4 targets this week, where you see he has the explosiveness to get a 20-point performance. This week, he only had 10 points, but again, that's not terrible for someone you're throwing in your flex, and he has the potential to get up to a 20-point game if he ends up connecting with Derek Carr, and that's very likely. Chris Olave is very good, Michael Thomas is very good, but it's clear Shaheed has a much different skill set of being only a deep ball guy, and Carr likes to throw that. So I would take Shaheed. If his situation changes, Michael Thomas injury, bump him up. If you need to play him in your flex, I like it. He has a ton of upside. Go grab Shaheed as your wide receiver 2 on the waiver wire this week. So for our wide receiver 3, we have Robert Woods, who is 31 years old, but he's a sneaky good addition. He averaged 11 points his first game, 13 his second game, so he's looking pretty solid, and he's only rostered in 6.4% of leagues. Now, the Texans are throwing the ball a ton. Stroud just had a 380-yard passing game. He looks very good. He's probably the best rookie quarterback out there right now, barring an Anthony Richardson injury. But it makes a lot of sense, and I think we can continue this trend going forward because the Texans are going to keep losing. They're not a good team, so they are going to be trailing. Stroud is going to have to throw the ball a ton. They're going to be behind, and Robert Woods is a talented player. He is a veteran, and he just fits with what Stroud needs as a check-down type guy. Now, Nico Collins is obviously the wide receiver 1 in this offense, but I'm taking Robert Woods over Tank Dell any day. We've seen Woods be productive. He is old, but he just has that safe floor, and he could possibly grow into a flex role. Tank Dell, we've never seen a player be as small as him and be successful, especially not a rookie. I'm out on Tank Dell. Woods is rostered in only 6.4% of leagues, so if you need a sneaky pickup, go grab Robert Woods. Heading over to the tight end position, if you don't have a Hunter Henry by now, I don't really know what you're doing. I thought Mike Gesicki was the guy, but I quickly corrected. It's clearly not. Hunter Henry saw 6 targets his first game, 7 in his second game. It's clear Mac Jones is much better and likes to throw to his tight ends. We've known that. That's how the Patriots operate. But Mac Jones also fits the scheme very well. He's had a much, much better season with an actual offensive coordinator. And Hunter Henry is pretty talented. I mean, yes, he did have a touchdown each of these games, bumping it up, but he had 16 points first week, 17 his second week. When going for a tight end, you have to go for a guy that has a chance to get a touchdown every week. these positions are so volatile that really the only way you can win is by getting lucky, chasing touchdown upside, or drafting a stud. Tight end is such a crapshoot, but Hunter Henry needs to be on your roster after this week. I don't expect him to be this low at 34.6% any longer. He's definitely going to be climbing up these ranks. Next up, we have Jake Ferguson, who's rostered in 12.4% of leagues. Now, week 1, he had a rough start. He had 3.1 points. A lot of guys were saying, where's Jake Ferguson? It looks like he was going to take over the Dalton Schultz role. Cowboys love to feed their tight ends. It was one game. He still had 7 targets. It just didn't really fit the game script. That was such a weird game. Now we see the Cowboys dropping 30 on the Jets, and Ferguson has 10 points on only 4 targets. Now, he did have that touchdown, but still, keep in mind, he had 7 targets week 1, and he is extremely young. So, Cowboys are a great system for tight ends, almost similar to the Patriots. Dalton Schultz is an incredible talent. You probably haven't heard anything about Schultz this year now that he's with the Texans. So, Ferguson is a pretty good player in a great system. Go pick him up. Again, he has upside, and that's all that you can really ask for in a tight end. Now, for our last 2 guys, it pains me to say this, but as a Bears fan, Jordan Love looks great. And I don't know why, but I am the biggest Christian Watson fan. I know this goes against everything I stand for, but I love Christian Watson. And the fact that Love is doing this without Christian Watson, Dobbs has been pretty banged up, and he really is just stepping into his first 2 games of his career, essentially. So in his first week against the Bears, he had 23 fantasy points. And this week against the Falcons, not a great passing game, but he still had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, which led him to 20 points. I think his situation is going to get much better when Watson comes back, and he's going to be able to excel on that. He's under 50% rostered at 39.8 right now. Go grab Love if you need a quarterback. And at number 2, we have our boy. We had him here last week. We're going to have him here every single week until he gets above 50%. Sam Howell is legit. He had 15.18 points week 1. Not a great game. But week 2, he showed out, passing for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, as well as, he didn't really run the ball as much, but we saw week 1 he had that rushing touchdown. So how is that guy? Almost 70% completion. I get it. It's against the Broncos. They're not great, but still. 21.26 points. Yeah, Howell is going to be that guy. Go get Howell. I love him. Please roster Sam Howell if I mean anything to you. But that's going to wrap things up. Again, to recap, target Ford and Zack Moss above everything. Other than that, just use these rankings as what you need. If you need a wide receiver, go grab one of these guys. You need a quarterback, go grab one of these guys. You need a tight end, go grab one of these guys. But please, please don't let Ford, if you can get him, don't let him slip through your fingers. If you can get Zack Moss and you need a running back this week or next week, please, please, please grab him before Jonathan Taylor comes back, and he is absolutely worthless. So if you have any questions at all, drop it down below. We'll get back. We'll answer you in one of these future episodes. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.